Have you ever found yourself tending to a garden that simply won't grow, watering soil day after day, hoping for a sign of life, pouring your attention, your care, your most precious resources into something that has long since stopped breathing? We've all done it. We stand there, cup in hand, staring at brittle stems and faded leaves, convincing ourselves that with just a little more water, a little more time, a little more love, it will revive. But some plants are not dormant, they are dead, and the most compassionate, the most courageous thing you can do for yourself and for the garden of your life is to stop watering them. We do this not just with plants, but with relationships that have run their course. We pour our vulnerability, our forgiveness, our hope into conversations that have grown cold, into connections that no longer provide shade or sustenance. We keep showing up with our watering can, trying to revive a bond that only exists in our memory. We do this with dreams that no longer fit us. We cling to old versions of ourselves, to paths we chose long ago, watering ambitions that have lost their meaning. We whisper to ourselves, maybe tomorrow it will feel right again. Pouring energy into a future we've outgrown simply because we once planted it. We do this with beliefs that no longer serve us, with stories we tell ourselves about who we are, what we deserve, what we're capable of. We water these narratives with our doubt, our fear, our compliance, until they become tangled weeds that block the sun from what could actually grow in their place. Why is it so hard to stop? Because watering a dead plant feels like loyalty. It feels like commitment. It feels like hope. And to walk away feels like failure, like giving up. But what if we reframed it? What if stopping isn't an act of abandonment, but an act of clarity? What if it's not surrender, but sovereignty? You are the gardener of your life, and a good gardener knows that not everything is meant to flourish forever. Some things have a season. Their purpose was to teach you something, to shade you for a time, to help you bloom in a certain way. And when that season is over, the most respectful thing you can do is to honor its end, to clear the space, to prepare the soil for what wants to grow next. The journey toward a more intentional and vibrant life begins not with a grand gesture, but with a quiet, honest audit. It requires us to walk through the inner landscape of our commitments, our relationships, and our aspirations with the discerning eye of a gardener, and to ask the difficult question, what here is still alive, and what has I been refusing to let go of? This process of identifying our dead plants is the foundational, and often the most challenging, step. A dead plant is not merely something that is difficult or going through a temporary winter. It is any relationship, dream, habit, or belief that consistently absorbs our energy while offering no genuine growth, no sustenance, and no future in return. It is the friendship that has become a one-way street of emotional labor, where conversations are a recitation of old grievances rather than a mutual exchange of support and new ideas. It is the career path we continue to walk out of a sense of obligation, long after the passion has faded and our skills have yearned for a new direction. It is the outdated story we tell ourselves, I'm not good with people, I don't deserve that. It's too late to change, that we water daily with our choices and our self-talk, allowing it to choke out our true potential. The reason this identification is so crucial and so fraught with resistance is that we have often intertwined our identity with these very things. To admit that a long-held dream is no longer viable can feel like a betrayal of a past version of ourselves. To acknowledge that a relationship has run its course can feel like an admission of failure. We conflate endurance with virtue, and we mistake the comfort of the familiar for the vitality of the living. We hold on, pouring our precious resources of time, emotional vulnerability, and hope into these barren areas, because the act of watering itself gives us a sense of purpose and continuity. Letting go feels like a void, and we would often rather tend to a ghost than face the fertile emptiness of unknown soil. This identification process, therefore, demands immense courage and compassion. It is not about harshly judging our past choices, but about bringing a gentle, truthful awareness to our present reality. It involves looking at each area of our life and asking not, can I save this? But is this still alive for me? Does it bring me joy, growth, connection, or peace? The answer is often felt in the body before it is understood by the mind, a heaviness when we think about it, a sense of dread, a feeling of depletion after an interaction. These are the signs of a dead plant. Recognizing them is the first and most profound act of reclaiming your agency. It is the moment you stop being a passive caretaker of a dying garden and start becoming the conscious architect of your own flourishing. Until you are willing to name what is no longer serving you, you remain trapped in a cycle of diminishing returns, forever pouring your life into soil that cannot and will not ever bear fruit again. We often wear our persistence as a badge of honor, mistaking the relentless pouring of energy into exhausted endeavors for a testament to our character. We call it loyalty, we call it commitment, we call it hope. But when we are honest with ourselves, we must recognize that this often isn't the noble struggle we pretend it is. It is, more frequently, a disguise for fear. This false loyalty is a heavy cloak we drape over our anxieties about the unknown that lies beyond the familiar, even when that familiar is a barren landscape. To stop watering a dead plant, to end a relationship, to release a dream, to quit a path, feels like a profound kind of failure. We interpret it as giving up, as a lack of strength or fortitude. We worry about how it will look to others, that we will be seen as flaky, disloyal, or incapable of seeing things through. This external judgment, however, is often just a projection of our own internal critic. The greater fear is the one we harbor about ourselves, that in letting go, we are admitting that our time, our love, our effort was wasted. We would rather continue the charade, pouring our precious resources into a void, than face the sobering truth that something we once cherished has reached its natural conclusion. This is where the cost becomes astronomical. The water in our can is not a limitless resource. It is our finite capacity for attention, our emotional resilience, our creative spark, and the very hours of our life. Every drop we dedicate to resuscitating what is gone is a drop stolen from a living, breathing possibility waiting in the wings. We become so fixated on the single, barren patch of soil that we turn our backs on the rest of the garden. A new friendship that could blossom into profound connection is neglected because we are exhausted from forcing an old one to work. A latent talent for painting or writing lies dormant because we are too busy trying to force a different, ill-fitting skill to flourish. The energy we expend in the futile attempt to reverse entropy in one area of our life creates a deficit in all the others. We are left feeling drained, resentful, and stuck, wondering why we have nothing left to give to the things that truly matter. This is the insidious nature of false loyalty. It masquerades as a virtue, while it systematically bankrupts our spirit. It convinces us that we are being strong by holding on, when in reality, we are being weakened by our refusal to release what is already gone. The courage, then, is not in the relentless pouring, but in the quiet, sober moment when we finally acknowledge the truth. It is the courage to honor what was to learn from it, and then to make the conscious life-affirming choice to turn our attention, our water, toward what is still capable of growth. The act of releasing our grip on what has ended is often misinterpreted as an admission of defeat. We are conditioned to believe that perseverance, regardless of the cost or futility, is the highest virtue. To stop trying, to walk away, to finally put down the watering can feels in our bones like surrender. It seems to confirm our deepest insecurities, that we weren't strong enough, clever enough, or loving enough to make it work. This narrative, however, is a profound and limiting misconception. The true, transformative shift in perspective occurs when we realize that letting go is not an act of surrender to external forces, but the ultimate expression of internal sovereignty. It is not about giving up on something. It is about claiming authority over your own life and energy. Sovereignty is the conscious exercise of your right to choose where your essence flows. When you cease watering a dead plant, you are not being defeated by its death. You are making a sovereign declaration that your life force is too valuable to be offered as a tribute to a ghost. You are transitioning from a passive reactor, someone who simply responds to the demands of a situation long past its expiration, to an active creator of your own reality. This is the difference between a subject who serves a kingdom in decay and a ruler who wisely decides to steward their resources toward fertile lands. The dead plant. Maybe a job, a habit, or a relationship, but the dynamic is the same. You are pouring your power into a void, and the act of stopping is you reclaiming that power. This decision requires immense clarity and courage because it means facing the emptiness that the dead plant was obscuring. We often use these futile endeavors as a distraction from the more terrifying and liberating question: if I am not tending to this, what am I going to do with my life? Letting go forces us to confront that open space and our own agency within it. It is an affirmation that you trust yourself enough to navigate the uncertainty of fallow ground. You are choosing the possibility of an unknown future over the certain decay of the past. This is the essence of sovereignty, the willingness to be responsible for your own growth, to make choices based on present truth rather than past attachments, and to command your energy with the wisdom of a benevolent ruler who knows that the health of the entire kingdom depends on where its resources are invested. It is the most respectful thing you can do for yourself and for the memory of what once was. You honor its past life by refusing to let its corpse dictate your future. The most critical resource at your disposal is not time, nor is it money or talent. It is your energy, the vibrant, life-giving force that animates your thoughts, fuels your emotions, and powers your actions. This energy is the water in your can, and its quantity is profoundly finite. Every day you are given a certain measure, a quiet reservoir from which you must draw to meet the demands of your life, your relationships, and your dreams. The great tragedy and the silent crisis of so many unfulfilled lives is the misallocation of this precious capital. When you pour your energy into endeavors that are no longer alive, into the dead plants of your garden, you are not just being inefficient, you are actively engaging in a form of self-sabotage. Each moment spent trying to revive a relationship that has run its course, each ounce of mental effort spent clinging to an outdated dream, and each drop of emotional vulnerability offered to a connection that only takes, is a direct withdrawal from an account that cannot be overdrawn. The cost is not abstract. It is felt in the heavy fatigue at the end of a day spent on tasks you resent. It is heard in the sharp tone you use with a loved one because your patience was exhausted elsewhere. It is seen in the languishing of your true passions, the projects and people that genuinely light you up, which are left to wilt in the shade of your neglect. You are effectively starving your own potential, diverting your life force to maintain a museum of past attachments while the living, breathing ecosystem of your present and future is left to parch. This creates a painful paradox. You feel constantly busy, even overwhelmed, yet simultaneously empty and stagnant, because your effort is being consumed by a black hole of the past. The return on this investment is zero. It yields no growth, no joy, no forward momentum, only the deepening of ruts and the reinforcement of frustration. Recognizing this is the first step toward financial responsibility for your own soul. You must become the shrewd, uncompromising accountant of your attention and effort. Every commitment, every conversation, every recurring thought must be held up to a simple, brutal question. Is this receiving my energy, giving life back to me, or is it only draining my reserves? The things that truly matter, your well-being, your deepest connections, your most authentic ambitions, are like vibrant, thirsty saplings. They do not demand your constant, anxious attention, but they do require consistent, nourishing investment. They repay that investment 100-fold with growth, with fruit, with the simple, profound satisfaction of seeing something living and beautiful thrive under your care. The choice, then, is stark and inescapable. You can continue to pour your finite water into the graves of what used to be, or you can turn, can in hand, and quench the living, growing things that are calling your name right now. The act of clearing away what is no longer alive is often misunderstood as an act of destruction, a creating of emptiness. We gaze at the freshly turned soil where a dead plant once stood, and we see only a void, a bare patch that speaks of loss and absence. This perception, however, is a trick of the fearful mind. The true purpose of letting go is not to create a vacuum, but to consciously and courageously cultivate space, the very condition that all new life requires to take root. Nothing new can be born in a garden that is already full, especially one crowded with the ghosts of what once was. The relentless tending to dead plants ensures that the soil remains occupied, that sunlight is blocked, and that all nutrients are commandeered by the past. It is a garden living in a state of memorial, beautiful perhaps in its nostalgia, but ultimately sterile in its potential for the future. By finally putting down the watering can, you are not merely walking away from death. You are actively preparing the ground for a renaissance. You are declaring that the story of your garden is not over, that its most vibrant chapters may yet be unwritten. This cleared space is not an ending, but an invitation. It is an open field of possibility where the seeds of new relationships, new passions, and new versions of yourself can finally find the room and the resources they need to germinate. This space allows for the unexpected to occur. When every inch is already claimed and managed, there is no room for the wild, spontaneous, and often more authentic growth that comes from the unplanned. The most resilient and beautiful flowers in any ecosystem are often those that self-seeded, that arrived on the wind and found a welcoming patch of earth. By clearing the dead, you make your inner landscape hospitable to these chance blessings. You create the conditions for serendipity. This process requires a profound trust in the fertility of your own soul and in the abundance of life itself. It means believing that the void is not permanent, that the emptiness is, in fact, a vessel waiting to be filled with something more aligned with who you are now and who you are becoming. It is an act of faith that by releasing what was